Welcome to Podsauce. I am Dax Holt.
I'm Alesha Renee. This is your podcast discovery show.
This is the place where you come if you need a good recommendation, something to binge. We're here full of great suggestions for podcasts that are awesome.
I got one for you right now, and it's binge-worthy. It's 33 minutes, so Dax, this is up your alley.
Yes, give it to me. 30 minutes, I'm in.
Son of a Hitman, hosted by Jason Kavanaugh. This is so good. Now get into this one. Imagine if your father was a hitman. You know whose life that actually was about? Yeah. Woody Harrelson. The actor Woody Harrelson. Are you
serious?
Get into that tea.
So the weird part about it, no joke, I have been doing entertainment news covering Woody Harrelson and everyone else for like more than a decade. I did not know this fact.
It's a scoop of tea that TMZ missed, buddy. A scoop of tea they just left right there in the pot and didn't go pick it up. But you know who did?
This is crazy.
Jason Kavanaugh did.
Okay.
Son of a Hitman, 10 episodes only, guys. And I mean, they talked to two of Woody's older brothers, Brett and Jordan Harrelson. Charles Harrelson had a life that no one knew about. Well, some did, if you know what I mean. Daddy went out to get some tea.
And killed someone on the way home.
Kilt with a K-I-L-T. A couple of somebodies, actually. Daddy was about that life.
Man, this could have actually fit in my Done in a Day segment.
Yeah.
Angie, why did you give her the good stuff?
Sorry. Because I find my own picks, and you've been writing on the backs of others long enough. White man, do your own work, okay? She's like, tell them.
Yeah, no, this one sounds good. I am into it.
So good. Tell them where they can go, Dax,
well, you
can get more on this.
Yeah, head on over to podsauce.com. There you can see all of our recommendations that we're coming up with weekly. I mean, got some really quality content. This one I will check out.
I did you right.
Angie did right by giving it to you to give it back to me. But it was a good one, and I'm excited.
I think it burns you to give me some kind of props. I could fan myself from that little heat. Don't go anywhere, guys. We got more. This is Podsauce. Welcome back to Podsauce, everyone, your podcast discovery show. It is now that time of the day.
The best time of the day.
Watch out, watch out.
The best time of the show, honestly, in my personal, humble opinion.
Legitimately not even your turn to speak yet. I mean, let me give you at least a little bit of sauce, okay? Now, Dax's pick has come upon us.
So my pick for this week is called Housework.
Okay.
All right. So this is hosted by Esther Perel. Do you recognize that name?
I mean, it sounds familiar.
She was the one I also recommended.
Okay.
Before she was the one that Where Do We Begin? The relationship podcast where people coming in having issues in their marriages or relationships and literally talking it out. So she has one that's called Housework. And it's co-workers, it's owners of business.
Pearl, don't you?
She is so good. She is so good. And in full transparency, Sydney O'Reilly was the first one to speak about this. She's the one that has the Rejection podcast. We regret to inform you, the Rejection podcast. And she's come up with...
I'm not going to give you any shade because that's what this show is about, taking recommendations.
It is. So I took her recommendation. I listened to it. It's great.
Yeah.
So Esther will do a group therapy session with a company. And maybe they're having issues inside the company and they want to talk about it because sometimes when you're having problems in the work, you don't know how to talk or you don't know how to communicate those issues. You don't know if you're going to get fired. You don't know if you're going to have a problem. And so she is doing this therapy session. And it's fun to just listen into what other people's problems are.
How is work?
Esther, I need you.
Blink if you need Esther to come save you. Blink twice.
No, but it's so good. So the episode that I listened to was about a newsroom whose journalists were feeling like covering breaking news was breaking them down.
Ooh.
And obviously, coming from a breaking news background, it is hard to be constantly served up with death, destruction, and then still like be able to leave work and be like, I'm okay with life.
Yeah.
So that was a really interesting thing to listen to this newsroom and hear their struggles and to hear not only that, but they're all working remotely this year. So then you don't even have the water cooler moments to debrief or to let it down. And one of the women that was on the show or on the podcast, she was like, I'm single, I live at home, so I never get a break. I don't get to talk to anyone about my issues that I'm having at work or just the hard topics. There's no unpacking. And so she was like, what am I supposed to do?
Fair.
So lots of questions like this.
I overstand, sis. I can only talk to my rubber plant, but for so much.
So this podcast is so good. So that is why I am recommending Housework. as my pick of the week.
Esther's out here doing God's work. She's out here healing relationships, work ships, so those ships don't go a-sinking. See what I did there?
Unfortunately, I did.
Oh, damn.
No, it was good.
Sometimes
It
I
was good.
swing and
It was
sometimes
good.
I miss. You guys can go to podsauce.com. We'll put direct links up to the episodes that Dax mentioned, as well as you can get all the other podcasts that we've mentioned in this episode thus far. Don't go anywhere, guys. This is Podsauce.
Welcome back to Podsauce. I'm Dax Holt.
I'm Alesha Renee.
And we're going to get into it with a podcaster that I have known for many years.
Yeah.
Her name is Kate Casey. She has a podcast called Reality Life with Kate Casey, and it is great. It's huge, and a lot of people listen to it because the reality sphere is massive.
Huge.
Especially online, especially in podcasting. So, welcome.
Kate.
It's funny you say that because when I originally pitched the idea for my show 5 years ago, I went to a network executive, podcast network executive, and said, I have this idea for a show. I want to track down reality stars just from, years ago and just see how it changed the trajectory of their life. And their first question to me was, do you think that enough people will care about reality shows? Because no one at the time focused only on reality shows. Watch What Crappens would kind of do recaps of Bravo shows. And Heather McDonald would once in a while interview a reality star, but mine was devoted solely to reality shows.
So,
and that was the question. And now, there are tons of different ones. That just shows you how many people care about reality shows. And I always love it when people are not quick to admit that they watch shows. I'm just so busy. Now, by the way, when someone tells me I'm busy, I want to punch them in the throat because I have 5 children. Like, I have time.
You can make time. Right.
You can make time. But also, if somebody will say that, and then they'll qualify it with, well, I mean, I do watch The Bachelor and Real Housewives and 90 Day Fiancé. I'm like,
and you're
I
like,
thought
that's
that you're
4
so
reality
busy.
shows.
That you're so busy. But also, I think we should stop shaming unscripted TV shows because I think of myself as a cultural anthropologist, and I think my audience is too. And we're all just looking at the behavior of people, people's idiosyncrasies. And I think that at its best, an unscripted television show could really shift the way someone thinks about a group of people or the way they practice their faith or the rituals they have, the traditions they have. So I think elevated conversations about unscripted television is the place that I want to be.
So Kate, I'm going to pause right there. Give us, for those who may not be familiar with Reality Life with Kate Casey, give us the quick elevator pitch about what your podcast is about.
So twice a week, Wednesdays and Fridays, I interview people that are featured or who create unscripted shows, which include reality shows, documentaries, and docuseries. So anything that is in the unscripted umbrella. So one episode might be, I interview somebody that was on a reality show, but I'm also going to interview someone who is the director of the must-watch docuseries or documentary of the week.
Perfect.
She had me on as a guest years ago.
What reality show were you on?
TMZ.
Okay. Fair.
I was on TMZ, but it was really fun because we had a really nice conversation about what reality shows I was watching and things that I could tell other people about. Honestly, I don't remember what we talked about. It was so long ago, but it was fun getting to have a conversation solely centered around what you're enjoying in the reality sphere. It was awesome.
I have this weird brain where I can remember people that were on shows years ago. So I finally found a job where it's useful. But like one of the greatest shows ever, for example, that few people had seen was this show called My Big Fat Obnoxious Fiancé, and it was on Fox, where they took a girl, her name was Randy Coy, and they told her, we've matched you with another man, and we want you to convince your family that you guys are a legit couple. And for the next week, you have to convince your family. And if you go to the wedding at the end of the week, and they buy it, you get all this money. But what she did not know was that they were sabotaging her because the groom was an actor. And that actor was the guy that was the bartender on Grey's Anatomy.
Hilarious.
And that show was so funny. So another great thing about my show is that I'm going to tell you about shows you've got to watch. And I put out a list every week of what you need to watch this week, because sometimes people get stuck in just 3 different shows or one big docuseries, but there is so much out there in every genre, in sports and true crime and romance. There's something for absolutely everybody in unscripted TV.
So give me your top 3 reality shows of all time, your top 3 favorite shows.
Joe Schmo show was pee your pants funny, where they took this really sweet guy, Matt Kennedy Gould, and he was from Pittsburgh, and they had him live in this mansion. And the whole premise was, Matt, you're going to be living with all these different kinds of people like a real world. And what he did not know was that all the other people were actually paid actors. That included Kristen Wiig. She was one of the people that she paid. And he was so sweet. He was the perfect person for the job. And at the end of it, he finds out none of these people are your friends. Kristen Wiig was playing the role of a marriage therapist who had been married like 4 times.
Wait, was this before Kristen Wiig was Kristen Wiig? I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you got to go back and find it because it is so funny. I love that. There was a show called My Big Fat Obnoxious Boss that was like a spoof off the Celebrity Apprentice, and they had a guy pretending he was the boss, and that was hilarious. But I think that 90 Day Fiancé's early years were fantastic, specifically seasons 2 and 3. Go back. Season 2 had this couple where the guy, Yamir, was from Nicaragua and the girl was from Illinois. But the craziest story was that Yamir was in a Nicaraguan boy band.
Hilarious.
And they met each other when she was on some school trip, and she fell in love with him because she went to his concert. And so there's this whole Yoko Ono moment where the manager of the boy band is like, Yamir, you can't go to the United States. And he ends up going to the United States, marrying her. And then he's like, I live in the sticks in like Indiana, and I want to pursue this music career. So that is like a great show to go back and watch too. But of course, there's so many great seasons of The Bachelor, Real Housewives, Below Deck. I mean, there's so many shows out there, something for everybody.
So you've given us amazing recommendations of things to watch, reality shows, documentaries. We are a podcast show. Is there any recommendations for podcasts that you're listening to that you would say, this is a great podcast, people should check it out?
Okay, so my favorite podcast of all time is called Heavyweight. Do you guys know about this one?
No.
Nope.
Okay, so Heavyweight is done by, and the host is, I believe, a TV or movie producer. His name's Jonathan, and he's Canadian. Every episode, he helps somebody talk about and work through something that's heavy on their heart. But every episode is either poignant or hilarious. So one episode, he talks to this girl who was kicked out of a sorority, and she's been killing her. Like, I just don't understand what happened. So he helps her make phone calls to all the sorority sisters to find out what happened. Another episode, there's a couple that placed a daughter for adoption and then ended up getting married and having more kids. And they have Jonathan help them track down what happened to their daughter that they placed for adoption.
Wow.
Every episode is different. One episode were 2 sisters that had parents that divorced, and they really connected with this babysitter, and they always wondered what happened to her. And so he helps track down that babysitter. So I think that if you love really interesting stories, it's right up your alley.
This will be my pick for next week, so don't steal
Knock
it,
it
Leash.
off.
Don't steal it. This one's good.
it
And you know
off,
I love stealing our guest recommendation, turning them into my own.
Oh, Kate, thank you so much, Kate. This was so good. I'm definitely going to check out your podcast, specifically scrolling for the documentary one. So when we
So good.
When we
wait. You have to listen to my one about The Last Dance.
talk to me.
That was on ESPN. It was about the Bulls' final season. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to give you 2. So the Bulls' last season on ESPN, The Last Dance, unbelievable. And I interviewed Michael Jordan's biographer, and he tells the story about going into the locker room and interviewing a young Kobe and talking to him about what Michael said about Kobe. And I cried in the interview. It was so moving. That's a great one. But also, are you familiar with the story of Chris Herron? Probably not.
No.
He was a basketball player that developed a drug problem. He was a standout player in Rhode Island and got a scholarship to play at Boston College. Unbelievable. Like a local kid going to play at Boston College. Second day of school, he goes into his room. His roommate's doing a line of coke. He does a line, and then he got hooked.
Oh, man.
Ultimately, he gets kicked out of school. Fresno State picks him up. He is still a junkie, playing well. He goes to play for the Utah Jazz, but people are going junkie, junkie whenever he plays. And it's the story of what happened to him as his drug addiction got worse, and then ultimately how he got sober. And he's been sober for like 20 years. He goes into high schools and he talks to kids, and it's like their hair blows back. It's like a really frank, honest, truthful story about drug addiction. But the documentary is called Unguarded. If you just look it up in the search button for Unguarded, it's part of the 30 for 30 series on ESPN. I watched it on a plane on a Sunday and tracked him down on a Tuesday, and the episode was out on a Wednesday.
What epi is that? I know you remember
crazy.
it. What episode is that for your podcast? 30 for 30.
That one I can't remember, but it's his name's Chris Herren, Herren. All right, I swear this is the last one. I could go on. Marcus Lemonis is the host of a show on CNBC. It's the most popular show. It's called The Profit.
Yes.
So he goes in and he helps companies figure out how to get become more profitable. And so I interviewed him. I've been tracking him down for a long time, and I thought I'd get 20 minutes with him, and he gave me 40 minutes. And what's so fascinating is that he opened up about, he was placed for adoption in a Greek orphanage, and then he was adopted by a Greek family in America. He found out that his birth parents were actually Syrian, so he tells that story about it. And then also he opened up about being a sexual abuse survivor. Never expected that to come out, but he so beautifully expressed what it's like to be not just a sexual abuse survivor, but a man. I just couldn't believe that a man of his level of fame and success that would be open about that. So that's also a really good episode.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got some homework to do.
homework.
We got a lot of podcasts to be
do.
listening to.
We do.
Kate, thank you so much. And if you guys want to check out Kate's podcast, you can head over to podsauce.com. We'll have a link to Reality Life with Kate Casey right there.
I would also like to say that I'm always on the hunt for other podcast hosts to come on my show and to review shows, either a reality show or a documentary. So
we're here.
let that be word out.
We'll do a host role. We'll come on through too.
Oh, good. Perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Kate.
you.
All
Don't
right.
go anywhere, guys. We have more. This is Podsauce. Welcome back to Podsauce, everyone. Dax, you got it done in a day, yes?
You know this is one of my favorite segments.
Is it done in an hour?
Done in an hour, done quickly. Just get in, get out.
Get her done.
I love it. I like quick podcasts.
Yeah.
I like things that are not too long, that I don't have to invest too much time.
Okay.
This is one of them. So this one is called Dolly Parton's America.
Okay.
It is there's 9 episodes, all of them shorter than an hour, so you can really get it in, get it out. But the great thing about this podcast, I've never been a huge Dolly Parton fan. I just didn't know much about her.
Yeah.
I started listening to this podcast. It's great. She's awesome.
Oh, she's on it?
She's on it. She's like sitting down and interviewing with the host the whole time, talking about her
You
life.
buried the lead. So Dolly Parton has a podcast?
No, she's not the host of the podcast.
Okay.
There's the host. His name is Jad Ambarad.
You did your best. Move on.
Really sorry, guy.
You did your
I
best.
totally butchered his name. But yeah, he's covered, I guess he grew up in the same town where Dolly was from, kind of grew up, knowing all of her songs and music, and just kind of always just had her in the background.
Okay.
Wasn't even a huge fan himself, or didn't realize how big she had gotten, was at a concert one day and realized the impact Dolly has had on America. And so he started now sitting down with musicians, with fans, with Dolly herself, and talking about her impact on the United States. The first episode is called Sad Ass Song, and it's about how there was these old folk songs about men murdering women, and she flipped the script on it from a young age and made it about the woman's perspective, bringing the power back to the woman, and he dives into that with her.
And that brings back the Dixie Chicks, who also did something comparable to that with their song Earl. Earl had to die. Goodbye, Earl. Those black eyed peas. Okay, so I see that now.
Again, I didn't know much about Dolly.
Good.
I started listening and I was enthralled by the podcast. And like I said, you can get it done really quick, done in a day. So that is why you should check out Dolly Parton's America.
And you guys can go to podsauce.com where you can get some links to episodes that are within Dolly Parton's America.
And big thank you to Kate Casey for coming on. She has her podcast, Reality Life with Kate Casey. So thank you for joining us. That was really fun. She had some good stuff, good recommendations.
Really good recommendations. Her documentaries, I mean, I just know, like, when we're done, I'm absolutely going to start popping in some of her episodes, more specifically the documentary episodes. But yes, thank you so much, Kate, for your wealth of info.
Absolutely. And if you guys want to follow us on social media, you can check out the Podsauce on IG, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. There's a video aspect. If you're just listening to this right now, you can find me at Dax Holt.
And you can find me at I am Alesha Renee. Until next time, thank you all for joining us across all of our platforms. Until then, be good to yourselves.